There's been a lot of disappointment around the Cash Money Union that took place at Essence Fest this past weekend. I think there's just so much that people have to understand about the history of Cash Money, and obviously, we got Birdman and Lil Wayne on our old covers of Parlay. Um, Definitely have been around and seen the stories, that is Cash Money. Cash Money has to be, and it will go down as one of the greatest record labels ever, just for what they were able to do. When you look at the 90s and the impact they had, and the fact that it's still relevant to this day. And of course, you have the different variations, right? You have the Cash Money era, you have the Young Money era, you have, even post Young Money, where it's been Drake, Nicki, and Lil Wayne set at the top of their game. Um, But all that said, there is still a lot of drama in the Cash Money world, right? And I always say, that family is still tight and strong. So it's never a good idea to pick sides. Like I've been around long enough. I've seen like people like Rick Ross try to pick a side. Just don't do it. Like I think everything that happens with Cash Money is kind of family business, and you just have to let them play it out. So Birdman has been sued by just about every member of Cash Money. Not necessarily Young Money, but Cash Money, right? Manny Fresh was the first to leave, years and years ago. And that was over, of course, money and Manny was producing just about all the beats back in the day for Cash Money. And he reportedly wasn't being paid what he felt like he should be paid, right? He after the big timers stopped, Manny Fresh did his solo thing. He dropped one album, um, but that was it. The money wasn't right. He left. Um, Turk left. Turk might have even left before Manny, honestly. Turk was always like, and he says it, he knows that Turk was on the first cover of Parlay, but Turk was kind of the problem child, right? Like he was on drugs, he was doing the most, he wasn't showing up to videos, et cetera, et cetera. So while he left, and reportedly it was because of money as well, he was just trying to blow up as a solo artist. A lot of that was like on the Cash Money side, the Birdman side, they were kind of over the antics as well. So it was almost an amicable split. They preferred him not being part of the fold. Um, what that really did is it always made Hot Boys. That was how Hot Boys ended, right? Like if Turk's not going to be there, it's four members of the Hot Boys. So that always kind of ruined that. And then Juvenile left, right? And Juvenile was the first artist to kind of blow up from Cash Money, the biggest Cash Money artist. I mean, if you really understand Cash Money, Juvenile was the biggest thing on that label for a very long time, and he's the reason why some of the other artists got to blow up the way they did. But he left, he sued, and he actually was the first to come back, right? So Juvie left, but he also came back. He did a best of album. By the time he dropped the song with Soldier Slim, like he was already back on Cash Money. But it was always like, I think what happens with a lot of the Cash Money members is once the trust is kind of gone, like it's still love because they still understand that Birdman impact on them and their careers and their childhood, young adulthood. Like a lot of these were your young men at the time they were working with Birdman. So they understand that, right? Like, and they always have that appreciation. But I do think some of the trust gets lost over time. And I feel like that was always the case with Juvie even when he came back the first time, eventually or pretty quickly after the comeback, he left, was doing his thing with Whack and with Skip. Um, and then, that even that got messed up. But I think that helped Juvie realize that, this business is tricky. It is not always pretty. You can get these deals, but somebody's gonna be getting your money regardless, right? Like it's not just Birdman that's going to be taking your money. And it's probably worse if you go to Atlantic, which Juvie was signed to for a while, and you got a Craig Callman taking your money. You don't even know that man. And he white. Like, he's just. So I think those were some lessons Juvie had to learn along the way. BG left. He left pretty early on. He had diss tracks to Birdman. He eventually had diss tracks to Birdman and Wayne. So just messy, right? Of course, BG was kind of what was holding up the reunion to begin with. Kind of hard to rep Cash Money when you don't have BG. Bling Bling is still one of the biggest records to ever come out of Cash Money. Like, you need him. And BG was locked up for just about 14 years. Turk was locked up for 9 years. I know I'm messing that up, Turk. It was either 9 or 11. I think it was 9 years, 11 months, right? But it could have been 11 years. But nonetheless, Turk was locked up. But the years Turk was locked up actually didn't hurt any reunion options, just because they weren't really on that type of time. Wayne was bubbling, right? So you didn't. I don't think anyone missed. I hate to say it, but I don't think anyone missed Turk. Those weren't years where they were looking at doing a reunion anyway. Um, but nonetheless, um, so BG was a hard hit, but even still, like, BG and Wayne have patched things up over the years. BG got locked up, ruined everything. Then, while that takes place, that's when Lil Wayne and Birdman had their issue, right? And that one's one of the more tricky issues. I know there's rumors that Birdman had the tour bus shot up. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not defending dudes anymore. I don't know if that is an accurate description of what took place with Birdman and Lil Wayne. I do believe that they consider themselves family, right? So despite whatever drama, to this day, they're still cool. You still see anytime Birdman's getting honored or awarded, Lil Wayne is still in the building, right? Anything that's going down, Lil Wayne is still going to hold it down, and vice versa. If Lil Wayne is getting honored, you really can't do it if Birdman's not in the building, right? So they might not necessarily be as public facing as they were when they dropped that Like Father Like Son album. They might not still have that father son dynamic, but at the same time, Lil Wayne's a grown man at this point, right? So that's not even necessary for their dynamic. But that's also why I say, like, people have to, even if that's not the dynamic anymore, that was a dynamic for so long. You know, Birdman will always be one of the major father figures in Lil Wayne's life. So it's always just a conversation away from them mending fences, right? So I know that's a long, drawn out version of that, but that's just what it is. BG came home, and that's when all this hype around the reunion reemerged, which is all great. But even when BG dropped, the first one of the first songs BG puts out is a diss towards Big Lil Wayne, right? Like, and he, took shots at Birdman as well. Not necessarily huge shots, but apparently, like, he was hoping to sign the Cash Money when he came home. It didn't necessarily pan out, because the finances, like, his expectations for finances weren't what Birdman was willing to give. Nonetheless, he took shots at Lil Wayne, basically called him a bitch on a Finesse 2 Times song. And still, this reunion was still able to happen. BG and Lil Wayne have been in the same place, so clearly conversations have happened. I don't know how Turk didn't make Essence Fest. I don't know the actual reasoning. BG did take to Instagram or social media and said that Turk knows what he did. Um, and apparently it was since last summer he did something. I think a lot of it probably has to do with his time, not his Drink Tramps interview. You know, he probably, like I said, a lot of this is family business, and he probably did way too much talking in that interview and revealed a bit too much. Um, in regards to just the whole family dynamic. So I don't think that's helped his cause. But again, I just think it's a conversation away. You know, he was always, like I said, he was always the furthest away from the group, right? Like he was one of the first to leave. He was in jail right after he left. You know, I know why he was in prison. There wasn't too much conversation with any of the members of Cash Money or the Hot Boys. So didn't necessarily help. He came home. One of the first things he did was sue Birdman, which he talked about in the Drink Champs interview. So it's just that dynamic has always been shaky. Um, but it's not that it's unrepairable, right? Like the conversation needs to happen. Who's going to be the adult in the room, right? Like, and it's a lot of them. 6 men. You know, they're still slim in the background. So 7 men that really got to sit down and like all get on the same page. I know Lil Wayne performed and kind of did his own set away from Cash Money, but again, if Cash Money is there, Birdman's there, it's very hard for Lil Wayne not to be there, right? Like, and as much as he might have done his own set, that's not to say that he's anti Birdman or anti Cash Money. It's really just a situation of they all need to get on the same page. How it's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen, I don't know. You know, I know a lot of discussion on the internet has been that Lil Wayne said if Turk's not going to be part of the reunion, he doesn't want to be part of the reunion. I don't know where people are getting these facts and statements from. I'm not saying he didn't say it. It might be something he said. Um, you know, Wayne hasn't really talked too much about a reunion in recent years, whether it's Cash Money or anything else. To be honest, Cash Money, Hot Boys, any of those. You know, Turk has been doing shows with Juvenile. He has been, you know, connecting. I believe him and Manny Fresh did a track recently. You know, so it's all there, and it will all come together for these guys sooner rather than later. You know, when they finally announce a reunion tour or, you know, a set of shows, they're gonna sell out more than the Bad Boy the Bad Boy reunion tour. But I think money is ultimately maybe the biggest issue here, right? Like how do you divide it up when you have again 6, 7 men who feel like they deserve or they've earned, you know, whatever they've earned at this point in their career. You know, Lil Wayne is a top billing artist, of course, right? Like, so does he need to go back and remember, as part of Hot Boys, Lil Wayne was probably the lowest on the totem pole, right? Even Turk was a little higher at that specific time, but Wayne was also the youngest, right? So you have to make sense of that too. Wayne was the youngest in the crew, so while him and Turk were close in age, and that's why they went back and forth on a lot of tracks, Wayne was still a baby. So at this point, that is totally flipped. And Wayne is the biggest artist of this crew. Maybe not in New Orleans, but everywhere else, right? Like Juvenile might still be the biggest in New Orleans. Juvenile, literally, after his tiny desk, he's now announced that he's doing a nationwide tour with his band. So he's fine. The big timers, I mean, if you saw the videos from New Orleans, you saw the big timers still command that energy. Manny Fresh is still Manny, Birdman still Birdman, right? Like now, on most nights, they might not get that love outside of New Orleans, just those two, but they still got hits. So it's hard for me to believe that they won't get what they deserve. And at the end of the day, Birdman's still the executive that stirs his drink. So he still is going to command what he commands. BG, he right there, right? Like his expectations are lofty, and maybe maybe undeservedly so. You know, he's come out and he's put out music with Gucci. Um, they did a joint project since he's been home. He's put out a few singles. They haven't moved the way I think he expects it to move. Um, but nonetheless, like I don't think BG is thinking that he is not one of the greatest artists in the game. Still, So his expectations for pay will match that. I think clearly the conversations have made it so that BG and Juvenile are fine. Juvenile has, even after all the drama, Juvenile and Birdman came out with a joint project a few years ago, Just Another Gangster. There was supposed to be a part two of that album, which never came out. I don't know why. Don't quote me. I don't know. Um, but nonetheless, they clearly have been offenses. Manny Fresh and Birdman have put out music in the last few years. Didn't necessarily move as much, but it was really just, promoting other projects that Birdman was doing, the Cash Money documentary and a few other things. So all that to say, like, most of these guys have been able to patch up whatever differences, whatever financial issues. So it's all going to get worked out. Even Wayne, like I said, Wayne sued Birdman, but what ended up happening was Universal Records ended up paying Wayne. Wayne didn't even get paid from Birdman, right? Like, and what actually happened is Wayne dropped the suit because Universal Records came in and said, you know what, this is too much drama. We'll just pay you, but we'll remove you from Cash Money, right? So when Wayne drops, it's just a Young Money Universal release, and that's been the case for the last few Wayne projects. But that doesn't mean that Wayne and Birdman can't get together and make some things happen. Like it's not like the business side is completely damaged for the two of them. It doesn't appear to be in the last few years. I think they've gotten over that for the most part. Birdman hasn't appeared on a Wayne project, the last few projects, but again, only just a matter of time. Clearly they have conversations. Clearly they're cool with each other. They still got each other's phone numbers. Life is fine. But all that to say, like, I just think a lot of rumors get out of hand. Clearly, Wayne and Birdman have figured that thing out. Wayne and Manny Fresh are fine. They put out music. Manny Fresh and Birdman, they're fine. They put out music. Juvenile and Wayne, they're fine. They put out music. Juvenile and BG, clearly they're fine. They was on that stage hugging. They're great. BG and Birdman, they're fine. So as of right this second, the only person that's not in this fold is Turk. Can you do a Hot Boys reunion without Turk? No. But somehow Turk is going to have to have a conversation, right? Like, and he spent the last few days. Turk just dropped a song called "Ain't No Love," which in the video is like images of Birdman and Hot Boys and all those. He clearly feels left out. His fans feel left out, but it's only a matter of time, man. I hope he doesn't make it worse. He needs to allow the process to process, and hopefully we can get this reunion going. I know he's connected with Juvie, so maybe it's Juvie that has to sit him and Birdman down in the room and get them on the same page, and Birdman can get Wayne and BG, and it's 7 men. You got to have sit down, and I'm sure at this point, all 7 of them have their own managers. All 7 of them have their own lawyers. They all have their own things. So not only do you have to get them to sit down, you got to get all those lawyers and those people that work with them to sit down so they can come together and really figure out what what the financial breakdown for this tour would look like, how how they can get it scheduled with the craziness of all their schedules. It's just a lot. You know, they're gonna figure it out. I'm hopeful. I can't wait till they do because I'm gonna be front and center whenever that Cash Money tour goes down.